Good afternoon from Tokyo, and welcome to the online webinar by the JICA Ogata Sadako Research Institute for Peace and Development. My name is Ryutaro Murotani. I'm serving as I have a pleasure of moderating today's webinar, and I am serving as a senior director for the Office for Peace Building now. But more importantly for today's webinar, I was serving as the head of Office for Development Partnership when I was promoting the JICA's South-South and Triangular Cooperation, as well as working on how to enhance the effectiveness of triangular cooperation. So that's where I met a lot of colleagues from development partners from Asia, particularly from Southeast Asia. So today we have a pleasure of having three scholars from the region. Mr. Huang from Vietnam, and Mr. Hermawan from Indonesia, and Ms. Siripong from Thailand. Each of them will present their country's experiences on South-South and Triangular Cooperation, and then followed by Dr. Siripong's presentation on the ASEAN centrality in development cooperation. So we are looking forward to this conversation. So before going into the discussion, I am sharing the housekeeping announcement for the audience. So I am hoping that you can see my screen. So we will have a Q&A session after the four presentations. So if you have any questions, please use the Q&A function of the Zoom. So there is a chat box and the Q&A, but only use a Q&A function so that we can see what questions are coming up, and you can also vote for the questions you would like to be answered. Number three, recording. We are recording today's webinar for the publication on the JICA Ogata Research Institute website, and that's just for your information. And regarding the presentation materials, I hope you have received the email of the link to the presentation materials just 1 hour ago. So please look at what we call the Gigapod, so that you can download the presentation materials. So that was a long presentation of my housekeeping announcement. So without further ado, I would like to invite first a colleague from JICA Research Institute, Shiga Hiroaki-san, who will give us an opening remarks. Shiga-san, please.
Okay, Murata-san, thank you very much for your kind introduction. And good morning, good evening, and hello to everybody. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. So my name is Hiroaki Shiga. I'm an Executive Senior Research Fellow of JICA Ogata Sadako Research Institute for Peace and Development. It's a long name. And I'm honored to welcome all of you to our webinar on the changing landscape of development cooperation in Southeast Asia. I'm so happy to have an audience from various countries with various affiliations. Today, we are going to present the preliminary result of the joint research organized by JICA Research Institute under the umbrella of Policy Research Network on Contemporary Southeast Asia, jointly hosted by the GRIPS of Japan, RSIS of Singapore, and CSIS of Indonesia. So taking advantage of this occasion, I would like to express my sincere gratitude for Professor Shinoda of GRIPS, who kindly extended support for today's webinar. Also, my special thanks goes to my three colleagues in our joint research team, namely Dr. Huang of Vietnamese Academy of Social Science, Dr. Hermawan of Parahyangan Catholic University, and Dr. Siripong of Thammasat University, who kindly spared their precious time for today's webinar for presentation. So now let me move on to my brief presentation about the background and the objectives of today's research, our joint research project. So I would share with you my presentation material. Can you see it? Okay, thank you so much. So the starting point, I'm sorry. Okay. The starting point of our research was the recognition that the landscape of development cooperation in Southeast Asia is changing. And the driver for this change is the intensification of great power rivalry, among others, the rivalry between China and the United States. And as a result, the development cooperation, here, by saying development cooperation, I mean both the ODA, official development assistance by advanced countries or OECD DAC countries, and also the South cooperation provided by the Southern providers of aid. And development cooperation is increasingly employed as a tool or even a weapon for great power diplomacy. And unfortunately for ASEAN countries, ASEAN region, or more broadly, the Indo-Pacific region is the main battlefield of great power competition, where regional cooperation initiatives such as Belt and Road initiatives, the FOIP, and BIMSTEC are overlapping and competing. And it seems that COVID-19 pandemic is accelerating this existing trend. We are witnessing increasingly assertive China. They are deploying the mask and vaccine diplomacy or health Silk Road. And in response, the Biden administration is now renewing its commitment for this region. Recently, President Joe Biden said in the interim national security strategic guidance that America is back, diplomacy is back, alliances are back. So against this background, it seems to me that ASEAN countries are facing both challenges and opportunities. What are the challenges? Well, first and foremost, leaders of ASEAN countries worry that Sino-US confrontation in the region will endanger the expected coming of the prosperous Asian century. And another challenge for the region is that ASEAN centrality or the ownership of ASEAN countries in drawing the blueprint of regional development architecture is under threat. And some even worry that donor-driven aid by extra-regional powers would increase. But at the same time, great power rivalry also provides opportunities for ASEAN countries. It may be an opportunity for them to gain momentum for the reinvigoration of South-South cooperation by intra-regional emerging donors like Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, or Vietnam, and to enhance the closer cooperation among them. Maybe the main form of this close cooperation would be the triangular South-South cooperation. This is a form of South-South cooperation in which two donors and one recipient would participate. For example, Thailand may and can extend South-South cooperation to Laos or Cambodia in close cooperation with other ASEAN countries like Singapore or Malaysia. Also, it may be an opportunity for ASEAN countries to consolidate the lessons of their own unique socioeconomic development. So far, their experience of rapid socioeconomic development are yet fully understood and left under-theorized. So there is much room for them to consolidate their lessons. And we can find two encouraging factors. One is quite obvious. we are now witnessing the rise of intra-regional emerging donors. This is the main theme of today's presentation by 3 of my colleagues. And also, ASEAN countries are the best performers in containing the COVID-19 pandemic. Let me elaborate on this point. So here is the COVID performance index developed by Lowy Institute in Australia. You can see that among top 10 best performers, we can find the name of Vietnam and Thailand. And generally speaking, ASEAN countries are doing quite well, even better than Japan or any other advanced countries like United States, Germany, or France. And here I would like to draw your attention to the fact that, as pointed out by Professor Sakiko Fukuda of New School in the city of New York in the United States, that many developing countries, including ASEAN countries, effectively contained the pandemic without having the abundance of technological assets and financial resources which were available to advanced countries. So my expectation is that this would change or even reverse the existing vertical flow of knowledge in development cooperation. Let me elaborate on this. We tend to assume that lessons, technologies, institutions, or even norms flow only vertically or one-sidedly from so-called advanced countries like United States, Japan, Germany, or France to developing countries. But corona pandemic revealed that Thailand or Vietnam or other ASEAN countries have something good. I don't know what it is, what they are, but still they have something good, which is fundamentally lacking in the United States, in Japan, or in European countries. So there is much room for ASEAN countries to draw their own lessons in containing the COVID-19 crisis. Yeah, okay. So bearing that in mind, these are the objectives of our joint research program. One is to shed light on the realities of development cooperation in ASEAN region. This is the starting point. We have to grasp the realities, facts. So today we would delve deeper into this point. And second is to analyze the activities of intra-regional emerging donors like Thailand, Indonesia, or Vietnam under comparative theoretical framework, and to investigate what are the unique resources these intra-regional emerging donors can mobilize, including the lessons in containing successfully the COVID-19 pandemic. And lastly, to elicit policy implications for the reinvigoration of South-South cooperation by intra-regional emerging donors, and to enhance closer cooperation among themselves in this region. Okay, so this is the list of researchers who kindly joined our joint project. And today we invited only Dr. Juan, Dr. Siripon, and Dr. Hermawan. And I'm very, very sorry for being unable to invite Dr. Juita Muhammad and Dr. Kai because of the very limited time available for this webinar. But I'm planning to organize another webinar after we have completed this joint research project. Okay, so my presentation is not the main dish of today's webinar, so I should refrain from wasting too much time. So thank you so much for your attention. And Murotani-san, please invite Dr. Juan for the first presentation. Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much, Shiga-san, for your kind introductory remarks, and that gives us a very good guidance to today's webinar. So each of the
Thank you.
presenters, please limit your presentation into 15 minutes. So first, I'm going to invite Mr. Huang from Vietnam. Mr. Huang, please.
Thank you, Mr. Taro and Professor Suga. It's very obvious that Professor Suga have elaborated very clearly the objective of the research projects. And now we are going to discuss about the changing landscape of ODA in ASEAN, in South Asia, mostly focusing on South-South cooperation, as professors like intended towards that the main aim of the projects. And I'm being asked to present my paper on changing landscape of ODI in South Asia as the case of Vietnam, but I'm being asked to focus more on Vietnam's South-South cooperation to neighboring countries. In my presentation, I am going to talk on three main points. The first, I would give some very brief overviews of inward ODA in Vietnam, and second, I discuss more detail on Vietnam outward ODA in aspect of South-South cooperation of Vietnam toward neighboring countries. And finally, I would like to give some concluding remarks and some recommendation for enhancing South-South cooperation. The first point is that inward ODA in Vietnam, and we know that Vietnam started Doi in 1986, and after then that many ODA become important source for Vietnam development. In my presentation, in my paper, I also have mentioned quite detail about the numbers of ODA and non-refundable and refundable and concession loans into Vietnam. I'm not going to give detail about this in my presentation. But I am just going to talk some of the main points that during the time started in 1993, mostly 1993 to 2019, that the ODA into Vietnam can be divided into two phases. First phase is a boom period from 1990 to 2015. And that shows that many ODAs and from many donors have given ODA to Vietnam, as it plays very important role for Vietnam socio-economic development during that time, and to have Vietnam improve infrastructures and social and institution in Vietnam. And second phase is a past period after 2015. That's because Vietnam also become the middle income countries, and the inward of ODA into Vietnam in following the downward trend. During that period, many key donors provided ODA to Vietnam is that World Bank, ADB, considered as bilateral donors, and Japan, South Korea, China, and other countries as bilateral cooperation donors to Vietnam. And we think that Japan and South Korea is very important donors that have Vietnam in process of reforming economy and developing socio-economic landscape in Vietnam during that almost 20 years, last 20 years, starting from 1990 to recent year. And it shows that even now that the trend of ODA into Vietnam is downwarding, but we know that the help from Japan and other countries like South Korea and World Bank and ADB and other countries in EU also play very important role. So now I think that there not only the changing landscape, Vietnam emerging from ODA reserver to ODA providers. I'm going to discuss in two cases that Vietnam provides some assistance to Laos and Cambodia, but it's not happened to me that that's a changing landscape after Vietnam receiving less ODA, but also during Vietnam receiving many ODA from donors. Also, Vietnam provides some assistance to neighboring countries, especially to Laos and Cambodia. Especially when Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia formed the development triangle in early 2000s. And that one is the main institution that paved the way for cooperation among three countries, and also receiving a lot of attention from other countries like Japan and South Korea. In Vietnam, ODA to Laos, that before talking about that, the cooperation between Vietnam and Laos, and we know that Laos has long been one of the most political and strategic partners of Vietnam. So relationship could be for the independent from French colonial rules. And from that we have very close relationship between the two countries. And when the Laos also opening up its economy, Vietnam become the most important source of FDI into Laos. And at present, that Vietnam is ranked third among FDI provider in Laos with 409 projects and with total registered capital of $4.1 billion after China and Thailand. And besides FDI, Vietnam is also an important ODI provider to Laos, but it argues that there has been very little known about the pattern of Vietnam's ODI to Laos so far. Even before the Đổi Mới, before Vietnam implementing that reform policies, Vietnam assistance to Laos was in the form of non-refundable aid. After Đổi Mới since 1986, the pattern of ODI to Laos has gradually changed to development cooperation. Moreover, the ODA project provided by Vietnam gradually shifted from cooperation according to program and plan signed between the two governments. And although there is no available data on size and Vietnam ODA for Laos, the pattern of aid can be seen from sector. Has received the most ODA from Vietnam include agriculture, infrastructure, education, and training and health sectors. In infrastructure, Vietnam has provided non-refundable aid to build military facilities for in agriculture and rural development fields. Vietnam also have provided a lot of grant to and technical cooperation to help Laos development of agriculture and rural areas. Vietnam provides agricultural equipment and machine to Laos under the two government cooperation agreements. During 2001 and 2007, Vietnam ODA fund for 7 food security programs in 3 provinces of Laos, Vientiane, Champasak, and Atapu, and 3 irrigation systems in Vientiane and Hua Phanh provinces accounted for about 20% of total ODA funds from Vietnam to Laos. And in the field of infrastructure development over the last 3 decades, physical infrastructure was one of the most important sectors in bilateral economic cooperation between Vietnam and Laos. Many major roads, railways, and border gates have been completed and upgraded, such as National Road number 43 of Laos, connecting Mộc Châu of Vietnam to Pahang, border gate of Laos, and Road 6B in Hua Phanh province of Laos, connecting and Cầu Treo and Nam Phao border gates, and National Road 12A from Cha Lo border gate in Quảng Bình province to Kham Muộn province of Laos, Road 18 Brigade in Laos, and Vietnam provided aid to build Nakhon Airport and most recently new National Assembly buildings. In education sectors, also educating sectors very important. role as key sectors in Vietnam aid to Laos. During the early period of Đổi Mới in 1986 to 1992, hundreds of Laotian postgraduate and graduate was trained and graduated from Vietnam schools and universities. In 1992, Vietnam and Laos signed agreement on training of Lao cadres in Vietnam. In 1997, Vietnam expanded assistance to Laos in this sector through major channels, including long-term and formal training courses for Laos students, short-term training and retraining courses for Lao cadres. As a result, many high-quality human resources of Laos have been trained and educated by Vietnam through ODAs. In health sectors, it's very important sector that got assistance from Vietnam. Two of the largest health infrastructure projects in Laos supported by Vietnam have been Friendship Hospital and the Hoa Phan Friendship Hospital projects, with total fund of the first of the Siem Quang Friendship Hospital about 17.6 million US dollars, and Hoa Phan Hospital costs about 20 million US dollars. That is source of non-refundable aid from Vietnam is considered its largest ever. Some of Vietnamese government have granted to Laos before building that National Assembly building of Laos. About Vietnam, our ODA to Cambodia, so Vietnam-Cambodia relation very important and thriving over the years, especially despite that some up and down relationship between the two countries. As of now, 2018, Vietnam has 214 investment projects in Cambodia with total registered capital of over 3.3 billion US dollars, ranking among the top 5 countries with the largest investment capital in Cambodia. Similar to the case of Laos, the pattern of Vietnam ODA to Cambodia has not been much explored due to lack of data. Despite the pattern can be assessed from Vietnam major aid, infrastructure, education, and training and health sectors. Also, Vietnam has provided non-refundable aid to build military facility for Cambodia. In 2015, inaugurated in Cambodia in Phnom Penh, has a funding cost of about 240,000 US dollars to build officer training school headquartered with 2-story building in Kampong Speu province. And besides that, access to build border infrastructure, border market, also given by Vietnam ODAs. For example, that the market, the Cambodia first ever border market in Thari Bang Khamun special economic zone in Cambodia, about 1 kilometer from the nearest Cambodia-Vietnam border, with grant of 2 million US dollars. In education and training, Vietnam has provided annual about 200 scholarships for Cambodian students. To be specific, Vietnam funding to Cambodia in this sector from 2001 to 2010 was about 619 billion US dollars, about close to 30 million US dollars, of which it divided into different periods, but it proves that education and training is very important sectors that receive assistance from Vietnam. Also, Vietnam have provided assistance to train to graduate many cadres for Cambodian government, especially to improving human resources, and have Cambodia to attract the most Cambodian students into Vietnamese university and school, especially in the universities. Means that there was close relationship between the two countries during the last 3 decades after Vietnam opening up economy. Also in the health sector, also Vietnam assets building Phnom Penh Hospital during 2001 to 2010. Vietnam provide about 3 million US dollars for building the hospital in Cambodia, and also to train doctors and nurses and to equip health facilities.
Dr. Huang,
And
can
recently,
you finish in 2 minutes?
Very short now.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to end it. Recently, during the COVID-19 pandemic, Vietnam have allowed Singaporeans to fight against COVID-19 with medical supply, including hundreds of thousands of masks, gear, gloves, and hand sanitizer, disinfectants, and real-time PCR testing kits, and also donate for each country some money to help to fight against COVID. And also Vietnam set a plan for period 2021-2022 include to carry out survey for building a less border market between two countries and to run activity to encourage Vietnam and Cambodia businessmen to invest in border trade infrastructure, increase related trade investment promotion event, and to support firms introducing, distributing goods and border market in central trade centers and budget barrier. And I would like to give some conclude recommendation that despite the major socio-economic difficulties and challenges, Sindor Vietnam has still provide aid and assistance to Laos and Cambodia. And to for our work ODR, I think that Vietnam will take active role in assisting neighboring countries with effective and valuable funding for infrastructure, connectivities, education and training, and health and medical sectors, to bring collaboration among Indo-China countries, fostering development and cooperation in the CLV development framework for promoting South-South cooperation, co-support support from other countries like Japan, South Korea, US, and other countries for promoting North-South cooperation, and to build Indo-China as strong and as more close relationship among countries in Indo-China region. Thank you so much. Because as a time constraint, I would like to end my presentation here. I expect to get some question from you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Huang. We already got some 3 questions, but let us discuss this later on. And please, for the audience, please give us your questions in the Q&A section. So now we move on to the presentation from Indonesia, Dr. Hermawan. So I give you 15 minutes again, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the 15 minutes. Hopefully we can manage the presentation within such a limited time. Well, let me share my PowerPoint presentation first. I cannot share, unfortunately. If the host can allow me to go host, then I can share the PowerPoint presentation.
Dr. Huang, can you stop sharing the presentation?
Yeah, I tried to do it, but let me how to do it.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Excellent.
Great. Okay. It's coming. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Indeed. Mr. Murotari Yutaro, thank you very much for this 15 minutes. Allow me to share now. Yeah. Okay. First of all, I would like to thank you to Siga Sensei for inviting me to participate in this research. And I think we share the same agreement that cooperation between emerging donors in Southeast Asia is very important. We are aware about the competition between, say, Indonesia and Thailand and Vietnam, which must be not good for the development of regional integration. And the idea of having cooperation among the researchers in the region is very much appreciated. And my responsibility is to share about the new landscape. Well, actually, this is the new idea of having newly modified institutional framework to better delivery, to better implementation of international cooperation. Yeah. So what I would like to present is basically about Indonesia's experience in the establishment of Indonesian aid, and this quite new development. And yeah, we very interactive to share, and hopefully we can take and draw lessons what is important for other emerging donors in the region. And even though this is very domestic issue, but we do believe that the promotion of regional cooperation will be very hopefully will be enhanced by the establishment of the right effective institutional framework. Yeah. Okay. Here is the very proud moment of Indonesia progress in also as an emerging donor, as emerging provider of international development cooperation. The launch of Indonesian Agency for International Development, we call it Indonesian AID. And my focus of the research is how has Indonesia developed a transformative international framework, which is called Indonesian AID, to address the challenge as an emerging provider of international development cooperation. The problem might be common, but the way emerging donors address the problem might be different, and it will be good to share this. So there are 4 points I would like to share with you. The first is the rationale behind the establishment of the Indonesian AID. The second is the limitation that unfortunately faced by a national coordinating team of South cooperation in Indonesia here, that eventually they have to adapt or to find the right form of the institutions. And then we will look at the structure, function, and working procedures. And then at the end of the presentation, I will draw some lessons learned, 9 lessons learned, which are very important. Let's start with the rationale. Why Indonesia established Indonesian AID? Yeah, this is the summary of the rationale. Then I can go one by one, detail, but not too detailed. First, the idea of having Indonesian AID it seems very important because we need to address magnitude of challenge of the social triangular cooperation, and this is actually the reflection by a national coordinating team of social and triangular cooperation in 2015 and 2016. So there were discussions, very intensive discussions among the pillars of this NCTSTC, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, of how to mention it, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of State Secretariat, and also Ministry of National Development Planning. That the challenge was very huge, and then they come to the conclusion that one gate policy is imperative to enhance Indonesian performance in delivering social cooperation, social and triangular cooperation. Then, when we talk about the one gate policy, we recognize the importance of having single agency. That's the basic idea. So what are the challenges? Many. And I put here 7 out of many challenges. The first is looking at the experience of Indonesia, and I guess with the same experience with Thailand, Vietnam. There are so many different ministries and institutions that implement different programs of social and triangular cooperation. And this affects difficult coordination. And thus, the effectiveness of the program to meet the grand national policy is also as difficult as coordination itself. Institutional and legal framework is still lagging. We have it, but we have to recognize still very weak. Less authority, no strong regulations because it's based on the ministerial regulation, but not a government regulation, which higher than ministerial decree. The weak monitoring and evaluation mechanism for better implementation, I think we recognize that real challenge. The budget compatibility issues, because it was implemented by different ministry, then come, how could we know the total budget of Indonesian social and triangular cooperation? Of course, there are so many demands, but the fund is very limited. Unfortunately, because we have to depend on the state budget. Difficulty to run the multi-year program, because we cannot do that. The state budget clearly state that it can only be used within one fiscal year. And then sometimes, actually quite often, the long distribution of grant for humanitarian assistance including if we are talking about the grants for dealing with or tackling the pandemic COVID-19 pandemic. Yeah, I can inform you, luckily, because we have Indonesian aid, then we can provide grants for Afghanistan, Palestine, around 10 billion rupiah, which is quite a lot actually in Indonesian money. Fiji, Solomon Island, Papua New Guinea, and Timor-Leste, and without delaying. So in the same fiscal year, that's what I heard from Indonesian aid. Now look at look at more detail about Rationale. Everybody knows, and here in Indonesia we know Indonesia is now upper middle income country. It was lower middle income country, and because we have agreed our status as a middle income country, then comes the moral responsibility. Yes, and we are very pleased to share with other developing countries how we manage official development aids in the past. We would like to share with other developing countries about the best practices in addressing so many different issues. And hopefully the lesson from Indonesia can help other developing countries. That's the basic idea. So this is the new moral obligation for Indonesia to have other developing and developed countries to share good lesson and provide technical cooperation. Different kind of flexi program we have already 7 at least from 2011-2014, agriculture, disaster and risk management, democracy and good governance, trade and industry, infrastructure, human development, and Palestine development. And since 2015, we categorize this all program into 3. We call it flexi program, which are development issue, economic issues, good governance, peace and peace building. Now, of course, in 2020 still. And here are all the data that we have, not precise the data. This already published every year in the annual report. This is a good thing from having national coordinating team. 26 program in 2014, 70 program in 2019, which is quite a lot, with around 1,300 participants from 134 countries, beneficiary countries. Mostly addressing the development issue. Yeah. Next, here are the top beneficiary countries, members of ASEAN definitely in the list: Myanmar, Timor-Leste, Vietnam, Laos, Philippines, Malaysia in 2014. 2015 we have Timor-Leste and Myanmar. 2019 we have Timor-Leste, Laos, Philippines, Myanmar, Vietnam. Of course, Myanmar and Timor-Leste are always in the list, in our list, looking at the importance of ASEAN centrality. But we also provide support for Afghanistan and Palestine. We found they are very important partner, beneficiary partner for Indonesia. Training, the programs, participate, workshop, so many activities. Also, quite important to highlight is the type of the cooperation. Social cooperation, which means supported fully by the state budget, or triangle cooperation, which is supported in cooperation with traditional donors. We are very happy to have support from Germany, from Japan, from United States, from Australia, working together to deliver social cooperation with beneficiary countries. So if you look at this number, 2018, the more and more reliant on state budgets, I think it's very evident here. 63%, I think, social cooperation, while regional cooperation is around 37%. Okay, next, here's the issue. Who are implement the program? 23 ministries, around 5 centers of excellence. Actually, the number is higher, more and more, a lot. Here's what the national coordinating team can identify. Also, state-owned enterprises, private sector, NGOs. Many, you see that. So this comes the issue when national coordinating team evaluate. There we need more stronger institutional framework. The question is, what kind of framework? What kind of institutions? Look at the timeline of the making of institutional framework. I think it has been really serious. The government already really committed in 1967 when it became the recipient at the time, and once Indonesia was the largest recipient of official development aid from traditional donors. 1981, we start to begin to provide technical cooperation, and it was responsibility of Ministry of State Secretariat. And then 2005, MOFA began to be more serious, to be more committed strongly to organize the social cooperation. Director of Technical Cooperation was established. And then 2011, the policy on social cooperation was integrated into national development planning, and come the commitment to have a specific institutional framework, which is national coordinating team of social cooperation. Indeed, of course, national development, the Ministry of National Development Planning was also responsible for this. So, director of IDC was established within Bappenas. You see, we have at least 4 ministries who were committed to implement social cooperation. In 2016 and 2018, there was discussions about how we would prepare for having first one gate policy on social cooperation, and then single agency to implement the one gate policy. It takes quite a while until the end of 2019. Eventually, Indonesian AID was launched. And I would like to say that this is not the final format of the institution, because not really a single agency yet, but this is good, a kind of exercise to have institutions fully responsible for implementing one gate policy. That's the key point. Okay, this 4 pillars, I think already mentioned about it. This is the structure. Of course, there is serious commitment also by NCT to establish stronger coordinations between different ministries. That's basically that we did. So in the end, you know, the rationale behind the establishment of Indonesian AID is come of the recognition of the magnitude of the challenge that we face, Indonesian face in the implementation of STC. But the problem is, in 2016, 2017, here's what the issue. The government, the president, did not allow the formation of the new institution. Quite unfortunately, you see here, this one is information taken from the Ministry of State Apparatus Empowerment, which says avoid information of new institutions. Well, why? Already too many institutions, not really efficient, not really effective, but cost a lot. State budget. 34 ministries, 29 non-ministerial government institutions, state apparatus, 99 non-structural institutions. So I can tell you, in 2006, the discussion was Indonesian AID could take form either non-ministerial government institution or non-structural institutions, because we need an agency just like JICA or CSIS or USAID, which has authority to plan, implement, monitoring, and evaluation. Yeah, should be autonomous, independent, and also has competence to increase the funding. That's and we found these two kind of format of the institution is the only option. But unfortunately, the limitation is indeed these all pillars of the NCT should respect. Cannot take a form as LPNK, we call it, or LNS, unfortunately. Then here, there was a discussion again whether what actually Indonesia needs is stronger NCT of SSC, or still continuing discussion on different kind of institutions. So eventually we have the idea to have Indonesian AID as public service agency. What's the difference between this and the previous ideas? Of course, this agency is possible, but the problem is it should be established within the Ministry of Finance. But this is quite interesting after the discussion. Eventually, there was idea to have this institution should be within the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, because MOFA clearly, by the law, has responsibility for diplomacy and also social cooperation and other things. And also they are responsible for the policy and its implementation. But there was also the limit, unfortunately, about the budget. it will affect the budget system within the ministry. So back to the Ministry of Finance, it is possible, and of course the issue is it has limited authority as well. It is more on the financing, funding, and investment. That's the issue. So the legal framework, I will try to.
Yes, Dr. Herman, we are running out of time, so please go quickly. 2 minutes.
2 minutes. 2
Yes.
minutes will be not enough, but anyway, I just quickly tell you. So the basic idea in the end is it focuses on the financing issues. It is responsible how to raise more funding. So Indonesia can meet the demand which increase from time to time, including from the ASEAN fellow members. That's the idea. They are responsible of this Indonesian aid. But the question, who is responsible for the implementation? Here are the issues. But I think we can make better still. So look at this one. Who are the key stakeholders? Of course, Indonesian aid is only one out of 2 at least, or 4 stakeholders in Indonesian aid. Of course, the focus in the financing issues. The policy is still in the hand of MOFA, Minister of Foreign Affairs. And here is the good idea. MOFA has responsibility for the appraisal and approval of the proposed program activities. And this is good thing because MOFA can ensure that all programs implemented by different ministries will be in line with the policy, the grand policy. Of course, we have implementing ministries and also foreign government and foreign institutions that receive funds. What lesson learned? Of course, we have so many challenges and still good to have Indonesian aid. And this Indonesian aid must cooperate with a working group under responsibility of Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And this is good to ensure one gate policy. One gate policy. Indeed, of course, you can look at my PowerPoint. If you would like to quote, then just let me know because it's still in the process. And of course, it's good because we have institution which is responsible for the funding, nursing funding. Yeah, and of course, this is good within the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Budget accountability, which is very important. So what is the way forward, and what lesson can we other ASEAN members can learn? First, the recently established Indonesian aid cannot be seen as the final format of the international framework. It is not. We still have different stakeholders. In the long run, Indonesia will need one single institution that can fully implement one gate policy. One gate policy is now in the process of implementation, of course, because of Indonesian aid. But the single should not only manage the financial issue, but also has authority to plan, execute, monitor, and follow the program, including making the price of the proposed program. And we are thinking about JICA, we are thinking about CSIS, we are thinking about USA. And of course, there is now a need to integrate the 2 key entities and implementing agency into one single group management. But at the moment, what we can say is let the new institutional framework to proceed effectively, optimally. Yeah. So at least within, say, 5 years, we will have really one gate policy. Then we can start thinking about how to transform the new institutional framework today with the new one, which is much more effective. And at the end of the day, of course, we will be able to contribute to the regional cooperation in social cooperation, also in the broader term for international development cooperation. So last, further reformation of Indonesia is clearly needed in the long term period. Mr. Murotami, I think that's all that I can say. And of course, thank you very much. Hopefully, you have the idea. And of course, it will be very interesting to hear your response and inputs so I can write better.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you very much, Dr. Hermawan, and thank you for your understanding. And people may have some questions, so we will have some Q&A session at the end of this webinar. So let me invite Dr. Siripong from Thammasat University of Thailand, and another 15 minutes, please, for your presentation on Thailand.
Yeah.
Dr. Siripong, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. I will go for share screen. Okay. Yes. Okay. First of all, I would like to thank JICA and also Chika Sensei for inviting me to join this project and also for this webinar today. At this moment, I will talk about Thailand first, and then maybe, and then later I will talk about the conclusion of the findings of our project. For Thailand, I think many of us already know that Thailand had started development cooperation policy 2 decades ago. So what I'm going to focus today actually will focus on the 2nd decades of our experience and see how Thailand improve or adjust her policy, and also to see the future that Thailand will move forward as an active regional provider. I actually will focus on the key frameworks and the key policy. The details, for example, like case study or statistic will not be included in this presentation, but any of you, if you would like to follow, you can see from my paper later. The outline of the presentation, I divided the presentation into 2 parts. First part, I will focus on, Thailand as a southern provider by focusing on the challenges during the 1st decade. What is the policy direction or institutional arrangement that we have? Then I will move to the 2nd part, focusing on progress and achievement in the 2nd decade. So we will see how Thailand adjusts her policy and also improve her delivery process by through the lesson learned that they have, that Thailand has in the 1st decade. And then we also identify the challenges for the future, particularly the institutional reform that many people talk about. These in our country, the impact assessment and the effectiveness, which is not yet done much in our policy and also practice. The 2nd part of my presentation will go to the Thailand as a driver for SSC in ASEAN Regional Development Cooperation. In this paper, I focus just only on SSC, and I do not include TRC because I would like to focus on the regional cooperation, mainly between ASEAN 6 and also ASEAN 4 in the regional development cooperation policy. I will try to talk a bit about Thailand new, actually it's not that new, but more active in regional, sub-regional cooperation, that is ADMEC. And I see this as a platform to promote South-South cooperation for the region. The objective of my study, actually, there are 2 objectives. The first one is to review the achievement, progress, and challenges of Thailand's development cooperation policy and practice. And the second objective is to discuss the possibility of Thailand's contribution to promote SSC at the regional level. The main argument, I have 2 arguments. The first one is that although we see, the achievement in Thailand development cooperation policy during the 2nd decade, I still see that there are several challenges. Several challenges still continue, and of course, I think critical adjustment and improvement in terms of architecture and effectiveness are really need to increase efficiency and impact. The second main argument is that regarding Thailand's contribution to promote SSC at the regional and sub-regional level, it is argued that Thailand is able to play a vital role to advocate SSC by 2 ways. First way is prioritizing regional cooperation as a channel for her aid delivery in order to scale up SSC at the regional level. Because so far, I will show you later that so far, Thailand provide, development assistance through bilateral channel more than other channel, and so this lead to the question how we are going to scale up, the regional cooperation if, Thailand or even other countries, let's say Malaysia, Vietnam, still continue providing aid through bilateral channel. Second way, if Thailand can play a big role, is that provide leadership and facilities for regional coordination to increase efficiency and effectiveness and also impact. The methodology that I applied because of pandemic during the past period, it's really difficult to conduct let's say the interview or focus group discussion. So mainly I use document from JICA, from NEDA, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and National Economics and Social Development Board, and of course some articles from others scholars. Then this is the overview. As you know, Thailand has been the recipient for a long time. I mean, since we start our economics and social development plan in 1960s. But by 2000, our economies became became developed, and also we became the middle income countries. And by 2003, this is the policy announcement by the government at that time that Thailand would like to change our status. Of course, we still continue being recipient, but at the same time, we start providing, assistance to our neighboring countries. The objectives by that time, there were three big objectives. First, we provide development assistance to neighboring countries in order to strengthen our cordial relationship with our neighboring countries, particularly those in the Mekong sub-region. At the same time, Thai government look at, development cooperation as the tools, instrument to expand our economic cooperation, and also as a part of regional integration process. So another two main objectives for Thailand to provide assistance to neighboring countries is to expand our economy, at the same time to strengthen the regionalization process. And in order to implement these policy, Thai government by that time issued two decrees in 2004 and 2005 to establish two organizations, that is JICA and also NEDA. JICA in 2004 and JICA in 2005. And actually, these two organizations are not the brand new organization. It's transformed from the existing organization. In case of JICA, it transformed from DTEC, and NEDA, it was transformed from NEDF. And the main function is that these two organizations changed the function from receiving and managing the inward ODA to providing ODA. The performance during the first decades, actually, when we start providing assistance, we have all types of assistance. We provide loan through NEDA, we provide grant and TC, technical cooperation, to JICA. Approaches, as I said, because Thailand try to utilize development cooperations as a foreign policy, as a part of foreign policy tool. So it means that we prefer the bilateral approach so that we can negotiate much with our neighboring countries. For the modalities, we focus on, demand driven, because this based on our experience as being recipient in the past. We look at ownership of the project as the most important one. So we try to encourage our neighboring countries to be the owner of the project. So demand driven is our key ideas. And at the beginning, because we still didn't have much budget to provide to neighboring countries, so the way that we work is project based. And these type change during the second decade. The destination, we look at our neighboring countries as the main destination, particularly Laos and Cambodia. The sector, I think Thailand share the same practice as other southern providers, that we provide development assistance from the sector that we have strength, that is agriculture, education, and health. For the source of funding, because this is the initiative from the government, so the source of funding comes from the national budget. And it's interesting to observe that during the first decade, the terms and conditions for loan that we provide to neighboring country is tight. We got conditions, we add condition for the recipient countries to follow when we provide aid. Observation. If you look at the way that we practice, you will find that first observation is this policy actually initiated by the government. It is a political view. So when it is a political view, actually it was separated from the national policy. This leads to the main challenges during the first decade. That is, there was no grand policy or strategy to give the guidelines or the direction for this policy. And this also leads to the second observation, that is the limited authority and functions of JICA, because according to the decree in 2004, the status of JICA was only office under the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And these also lead to the next observation, that is the limited coordination function, coordination, authority for both JICA and NIDA with other line ministries. So it's mean that during that time, other line ministry also, provide their development assistance to other countries by their own budget. I mean, their own under their own capacity. So these lead to the second challenges, which is the big challenges. And I think we share these challenges with Indonesia. That is the architecture of Thailand. By that time, it was really fragmented. There was almost 20 ministries that provide, development assistance to neighboring countries. And at the same time, even the government already create the organizations such as JICA and NIDA. These two organizations have limited capacity in terms of, structure and also human resources. So this leads to the, the other challenges during the first decades. That is the impact assessment and effectiveness. By that time, the organization trying to focus more on the provision process, and less attention was given to the monitoring evaluation mechanism. Then when we go to the second decade, in the second decade, what we see is that more progress and achievement has been done, have been trying to complete by both NIDA and also JICA. The first challenges, that is no grand policy and strategy. This has been solved by both JICA and NIDA. These two organizations try to integrate the development cooperation policy, the development cooperation policy into the national policy. Particularly, we can see that in the National Economic and Social Development Plan number 12, and also the 20 years National Strategic Plan, and also Ministry of Foreign Affairs Master Plan. So in all these plans, which are the key plans and strategies of the country, has identified at least one session, one paragraph about the development cooperation policy. So in this sense, it means that all these plan provide guidelines, direction for the status of Thailand as the provider, and also help these policies to be conducted in a way that aligned with the national policy. The architecture, this is also the big issue which has been discussed and has been continually discussed even by this time. JICA tried to make its status better or stronger by changing the status from an office under Ministry of Foreign Affairs to be the department under the Ministry of Foreign Affairs through the cabinet resolution in 2015. This resolution actually support JICA to be a coordinating body. So JICA tried to manage the whole picture of the whole policy of development cooperation policy of the country. Then for NIDA itself also tried to justify its existence by making its own 20 years master plan, so that NIDA can situate itself in the whole picture of development cooperation policy of the country and present itself as an alternative financial source for development, which is different from a commercial bank. Another point is line ministry. Of course, once the development cooperation policy has been integrated into the national policy, the line ministry also realized that they also have to comply with the new way of practice. Then the point is that because JICA become a coordinating body, JICA request all line ministry to report to JICA when line ministry provide, assistance to developing countries. It's so difficult in Thailand as the, as a centralized country and compartmentalized administrative system to ask line ministry to stop providing development assistance to neighboring countries because they have their own authority. But it's possible to ask those ministries to report to JICA, and JICA can accumulate, somehow the statistic to show that, oh, this is the whole country, the whole budget that country provide to neighboring country. For the practice, we can see some continuity from the first decade to the second decade, and also the improvement in terms of, type of aid. We continue provide loan, grant, and TC by loan through NIDA, grant, and TC to JICA as in the first decade. For the scope and scale, this is something which is improved during the second decade. We see the increasing budget. If you go to the statistic by JICA and also NIDA, I also show the statistic in my paper too. We see the average of budget increase from 2,000 million baht during the first decade to 4,000 million baht. And this is somehow like, double. So it seems to be big for Thailand. Again, for the programs and projects, during the first decade, for example, like JICA provide aids to seven channels, but during the second decade, JICA tried to consolidate it, make the program streamlined, seamless, so make it more consolidated. So when it become consolidated, it means the channel come to just only 4. It means for each channel, each program, it can earn more, it can get more budget. So it makes the program, somehow stronger. For the approach, what we see from the statistic is that, of course, bilateral is still the main approach for Thailand when Thailand provide development assistance to neighboring countries. But at the same time, we also see that the amount of contributions to multilateral organization, particularly international organization, is increasing. But only multinational organization, for example, the statistic in 2018 still show that the development assistance provided through regional framework is still very less. So I think that we see some improvement from the, from bilateral approach to multilateral approach.
Dr. Sripon, can you speed up a little bit? We are running out of time.
Yeah,
sorry.
Okay, I will try now. Yeah, okay. But it's still less for the regional framework. So this is the issue that I will talk later when we talk about the, ASEAN centrality. The modality, we continue the demand-driven and also the program-based. As I said, we try to focus more on program-based, not the project-based. The destination, this is something plus. This is something that we find some, improvement. Of course, it will be still the main destination for us, but at the same time, we see that now Thailand provides assistance to Africa and South Asia. The most important point is that the emphasis on SEP, the sufficient economy philosophy. All programs, all sectors that we provide in the first decade, we continue. For example, like agriculture, health, and education. But in all programs, we add the philosophy of self-sufficiency economy. Source of funding, what we found is that NEDA in particular trying to find funding from other sources, not just only national budget. So the factors that contribute to the progress and achievement, we found that both external factors and internal factors contribute to that. For the external factors, of course, the region, the SDG is the main issue, particularly is SDG number 17, that Thai government look at it and try to integrate it into the our national policy. The second external factors is the regional and sub-regional integration process, particularly ASEAN Community 2015, ASEAN Vision 2025, and also ADMEC. Building ADMEC Connect by 2025. 23. The internal factors, I think many of you know that we got good data in 2014, and that give a high hands for the government to include whatsoever that the government would like to implement into the national and strategic plan. The passed away of King Rama IX in 2016 also provide legitimacy for the government to, promote SEP. The challenges for the future is that first, this we share with Indonesia, and I think we also share with other southern providers, that is the aid architecture. It's still very fragmented, and the key question is that whether we should have a single coordinating body, a unifying body between JICA and NIDA. We also look at the experience of Japan, when Japan, merged JICA and JBIC together. We also know that there were several challenges on that. So this is the big question for us in the future. The second point is to scaling up, the scale, scope, and also to secure the finance for the future. The approach, the point is that whether we should provide, development assistance through regional platform much more than we are doing now, particularly if we are going to promote the regional cooperation. Impact assessment, I think this is the key issue for Thailand for a long time. In order to scaling up and also promote effectiveness, I think we really need the monitoring evaluation mechanism and standardized data collection system. Almost all last. Then that's the part that I review Thailand as the provider. Now, if we are going to look at Thailand in ASEAN as the driver for South-South cooperation in ASEAN Regional Development Cooperation, report that I got actually was done by ASEAN. Actually, it was done by Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Thailand in collaboration with ASEAN Secretariat and also UN OSSC. It was indicated in the paper that South-South cooperation practice has aligned with the regional integration of ASEAN through several aspects of cooperation among members, including trade, investment, aid. And South-South cooperation practice in form of development assistance actually had helped to lessen the development gap between ASEAN 6 and ASEAN 4, in particular the connectivity and capacity building. But the situation that we are facing now is there is increasing number of providers among ASEAN 6. These may lead to competitive environment among providers, as well as duplication of AIDS program and projects in the recipient country. So even Thailand look at the South-South cooperation as the potential and also significant tools for regionalization process of ASEAN. Several challenges still exist. First, there is no regional coordination body. Second, not enough available data for impact assessment, not only from Thailand, but I think even from Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, and also Vietnam. Unpredictable sources of funding for scaling up scope and size of the program and project later. And then less proportion of development cooperation provided to regional scheme. Then the way out. If Thailand would like to promote more, what I propose is, of course, more proportion of development cooperation provided through regional frameworks such as ADMEC and others should be done. Of course, this is the key issue that we have to debate in the future because it means what perspective we look at this from the national perspective or from the regional perspective. One progress from Thai side is ADMEC and ADMEC fund. I think many of you know that Thai government provide $200 million within 5 years to be a fund for support each other in the region. The second one, what I propose is also the ASEAN Coordinating Office for South-South cooperation. It may be able to attach with JICA or maybe attach with other bodies among ASEAN bodies that we already have a lot for this organization to coordinate, to be a coordinating unit among providers within the region and also negotiate with provider outside the region. The second point may be to work a lot on regional data collection and also monitoring and evaluation system to scaling up and access the impact of development cooperation. Thank you, Ka.
Thank you very much, Dr. Siripon. I understand you combined the two presentations, one on Thailand and the other on ASEAN centrality in your 15-20 minutes presentation. Thank you very much for apologies for my time management. So we have only 9 minutes to go. So we have lots of questions, but I think I can give only one to each presenters, and I give 2 minutes each to each one of you. So Dr. Huang, to you, I am asking you about your institutional arrangements, because there are many questions on this.
Yes.
Which organizations in Vietnamese government?
My answer to the old question, I think that share five, six questions relating to my presentation.
Yes, and can you quickly answer to the question on the organizational? Yes.
About the 5, 6 question asking about the name of the ODA or something as a name. Exactly, in Vietnam, we usually call that development assistant, but somehow we also can use that ODA officer, but the most time we usually say assistant to Laos and Cambodia. And somehow similar to ODA, but to be exact, that the assistant, sometimes we call that the development assistant. And for the people ask about Vietnam investment development bank providing loan to third countries, I don't think so, that because all the loan is that's not the loan to countries, that just only loan to enterprise or a company, but through that cooperation assistance just through the government. Maybe government ask some organization to provide that, depend on which organization government choose. And the question about South-South cooperation with India, I think that this is very, very interesting question, that India is having the Act-East policy before that Look-East policy. Now under Modi, that Act-East policy, that Vietnam is very important country in South Asia for India to implement the Act-East policy, that we also have a very good cooperation with India. And I think that India also is important, maybe important, somehow important partner of Vietnam in the process of exchanging that different assistance. And
finally, the government body.
The government body that it depends almost that the loans is the assistance is general through government, but government may design some organization to manage it, to govern it, like Ministry of Planning and Investment, and somehow that some other ministries that related fields that Vietnam provide loan to other country, maybe Ministry of Environmental and
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
sorry, given the limitation of time, I'm going to go to Mr. Helmawan. And the most popular question here is the Indonesian ODA, Indonesian policy towards Myanmar after the attempted coup. So can you quickly answer to that question? And I also have a question. I also like the question of which country you are using as a model for Indonesian AID. So 2 questions to Dr. Helmawan, please.
Okay, the second one, please. First, we explore, in my understanding, in 2016, 2017, I think we explore different kind of institutions. So luckily we got support from JICA, we got support from CSIS, also USA. All we learn from this emerging old donors, traditional donors, about the structures, about the function, responsibility, and so many things. But the key point that we learn from this old traditional donor, the institution must be independent, autonomous, and can do kind of investment of endowment fund. That's the key point. So like corporate, the government provides state budget in terms of endowment fund, which is around 200-something million US dollars. And then the responsibility of institution is to invest it, to invest the money. So by within 3-4 years, I think we have sufficient money every year to provide funding for the SSC or International Development Corporation in general. So three model I think we have. Also, we learn from Mexico, ABC Brazil, and JICA actually. The question I asked actually a few weeks ago to the government. So which model of IDC? And the answer is KOICA. KOICA is Korean. Well, actually, we learned about the success in KOICA. But anyway, at the end, it's up to Indonesian government. The institution should look at the regulation, authority, and we actually have two formats, ideal format. But actually, we cannot make it. The point is that the budget should be we should have more and more funding for that. That's the key, and the allocation of the funding in the end should be in line with the government policy. About Myanmar, very quick on Myanmar. Luckily, the pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic, we used to have cooperation on education like CFED. Also, decentralization policy. So we invited teachers from Myanmar to go to Indonesia and observe the education on TVET. It was in 2016, 2017. We could do that, but because of the pandemic COVID, of course, we cannot do that. What we can do is of course online. Will there be impact? The coup on. I haven't had discussion about that, but of course, all ministry will listen to the decision by Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and our president has been very tough, to call for serious issues in Myanmar. You know what that means, because the president already say, please be mindful with the situation in Myanmar. It means this my understanding. We will wait and see until the situation gets settled.
Okay.
I don't know whether there is a program now, but that's what can I say as far as I know.
Yes. Okay. Good. Thank you. So it's to be seen as well. So Dr. Siripon, finally, I think there's a big question about the ASEAN framework seems to be helping member states to solve many issues, but not many countries are using it. What is the challenge that not many countries are using ASEAN framework?
What do you mean by framework? ASEAN cooperation, ASEAN, the regional framework?
It's existing ASEAN regional framework.
Okay, actually there are many ASEAN regional frameworks, and as I said, in case of Thailand, for example, we don't use ASEAN regional framework. Country goes to the bilateral or even multilateral. I think this is the debate between the perspective how the country look at South-South cooperation as the national policy tool, or look from the regional cooperation, and we look at the what should I say, the tool to strengthen the region or the tool to serve the national interest. And I think it's hard to the government to justify that, okay, from now on, we should promote more on regional cooperation. I think now Thailand, particularly from ADMEC point of view, we're trying to do that, and we start to invest, the fund for that. But of course, still a long way to go. There are several issues coming up, so that we have to think about. I will talk about that a bit in the conclusion, if I have time. I don't know whether I have time.
No, I think we are running out of time, so I'm going to ask Shiga-san for this. But I think that gives us many insights, and I think I understand that this combination of regional and the bilateral or national, and how we can combine how we can use ASEAN as a regional framework would be, I think, a big question for the research team as well. So I think I'm looking forward to the future conversation on this.
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry. Thank you very much for your contribution.
Mr. Ritaro?
Yes.
Can you give me 1 minute more? Because
1 minute, please. Yes.
The question about the motivation of Vietnam.
That's also
providing,
yes.
Very
1
important.
minute, please.
I think that people may know that Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia have very special equity relationship, and we have many agreement in signing, in fostering a relationship between 3 countries. And Vietnam is providing assistance to Laos and Cambodia just in within that try to promote development and cooperation among three countries and to make the region for peace, stability, and independent from other, more independent from other countries, to make that solidarity among three countries. There's no any other motivation behind that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm sorry we are running out of.
Can I put
yes,
one
final
sentence?
words, please.
Yeah, final words. I think, you know, it is under the situation of, let's say, as Chika Sensei talked about the competition among external providers, I think in order to promote ASEAN centrality, it is really important for providers in ASEAN, I mean, 6 ASEAN providers, to think about the utilization of ASEAN frameworks, you know, because we have many frameworks and it will strengthen our position when we go to the field, I mean, in reference of the development cooperation. So I think it's a time, you know, to see and design the, you know, the way that we can use the regional framework. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And apologies for my time management, and time is already up. But we all find that there is a lot of interest and a lot of things to be discussed. And this research project is very, very important. We are looking forward to the future conversations. So Shiga-san, the final words for you, please.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much, Murutani-san, for your very nice arrangement and time management. Yeah, so my reflection is that we should have more time to discuss the whole things, whole issues, because there are so many interesting questions. There's so many interesting issues. So thank you again for Dr. Huang, Dr. Hermava, and Dr. Siripon for your very informative and stimulating presentations. And also, I'm very much thankful for the audience who activated the discussion by raising many critically important questions of common interest. Well, today we discussed the realities of ASEAN emerging donors in a changing landscape of development cooperation in this region. And I think there are 2 main messages. One is quite encouraging, whereas the other is not so encouraging. Firstly, we are encouraged by the fact that the activities of emerging donors, so-called emerging donors in ASEAN region, are gaining momentum. Dr. Hermavan's comment that Indonesia is motivated by new moral responsibility as a middle-income country, and Dr. Huan's expression of Vietnamese strong commitment to provide South-South cooperation to its neighboring countries are quite encouraging. But at the same time, I found that there are so many challenges ahead for ASEAN providers of development cooperation. And one is the institutionalization problem of having a streamlined, effective aid agency, as processively discussed by Professor Siripon. And the other issue I would like to raise is that, generally speaking, bilateral aid agencies, including JICA, tend to prefer its autonomy, partly because they want to show their national flag, and partly because the coordination process with other donors is so time-consuming, so stressful, and so cumbersome. I can tell you with my own experience. However, as Siripon Sensei said, that it is definitely necessary for new donors in ASEAN region to coordinate and cooperate in order to enhance aid effectiveness and to achieve Asian centrality in development cooperation. So, hence, our next task is to come up with the concrete policy prescription, policy recommendations to facilitate ASEAN centrality, such as a plan to establish the coordinating office of South-South cooperation in ASEAN, like that, as Siripon Sensei proposed. So we hope that we would have another chance, another opportunity to present our final product of our joint research. So anyway, I hope that you have enjoyed today's webinar. So thank you so much for all of the participants and presenters. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
And
much.
thank you very much for all the audience for joining us. And we really enjoyed the conversation and all three presenters. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you so
And I
much.
think we are receiving a lot of positive feedbacks from all over the world, actually, joining this webinar. And we are receiving higher expectations for your future analysis and the conversations. And I think we are in a new world where we can communicate with this virtual meetings. And at the same time, it's a new world where more and more Asian countries are joining in the international cooperation. And we would like to create a new world where we can benefit from each other more actively and more actively. So thank you very much for all the inputs, and we really look forward for the future conversation. Thank you very much, and we are closing
thank you
this
very much.
session.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.